This video will be all about how to measure your knowledge and understanding. Yes, you can figure out how knowledgeable you are by your ability to explain simply. And in case we don't know each other yet, I'm Oscar Lagrosen. I write a new article every day at thetotalliving.com about the total living lifestyle. And also written and published 3 books now in the last 2 months. And the third book is available for free by signing up in the description at my newsletter. The Ultimate Guide to Total Living is the name. So if you can't explain something in very simple terms, you do not understand it enough. This is the basis of many techniques for learning. The Feynman technique, after the famous and brilliant physicist Richard Feynman, urges you to explain a concept like you will lecture on it. Active recall works the same way, by elaborating something in your own words to quickly learn. The 5-year-old test forces you to strip down your language too, having to ground the particular concepts in well understood phenomena. Nonetheless, all of them stop you from hiding behind jargon and explaining yourself. Understanding a certain concept well comes down to how simply you can make it for yourself and others. So how do you get your thinking clean and simple wisdom? By using first principles. Although it sounds very fancy and somewhat complicated, it is the opposite in reality. You can practice first principle thinking anytime. And 4-year-olds are famous or notorious, depending on who you ask, for doing this. To get first principle thinking, you only need to know one single word again and again, which is why. By asking why all the time, you will go down all the causes and quickly reveal all insecurities or blind spots you might have of a particular topic. You'll be forced to confront all the ways you not know about it. You have to question your assumptions all the way to your most basic ones. The 5 whys is a highly effective tool used in businesses and organizations for preventing and solving problems. This is different than reasoning from analogy, which means justifying a particular behavior or belief solely because my parents or friends or culture and industry and authority or even religion say so. If you reason from analogy, you're deferring responsibility and understanding to someone you seek protection to, and thus give up your own power and control. This behavior has severe implications from mere non-critical thinking, dogma, and naivete to delusions, censorships, and dictators. But by asking why, you will have to seek knowledge by yourself. Your objective is to get the best answers to the fundamental questions all the time. Thus you let the information sources serve you instead of the opposite. In other words, they are fitting your opinions to you instead of you fitting your opinions to a certain tribe. Once you get down to the fundamentals, the axioms, the ground blocks of existence, magic happens. From there, you can reason up logically with simple statements like, if A and B are 2, then C must be true too. And using the scientific method of testing and refining. From the various sources, you construct your own knowledge tree, where you can effortlessly attach new information right and left, trusting that they can be retrieved later through the branches of analogies. The tree becomes a network with leaves, but with firm roots. And once you see the entire tree in simple terms, your knowledge is deeply established, more clarity and less confusion. In addition, it is by revisiting and questioning the basic assumptions that epiphanies and red pill effects, as I call them, link in the description, can happen. A tiny change at the source creates huge ripple effects. So let's talk about a particular example of first principle thinking, and that is Elon Musk, which at the moment is the world's richest man and CEO of Tesla, SpaceX and other ventures, and all inventors through history have practiced first principle thinking by questioning the assumptions of the times. Elon Musk stands out as the best example. When he was looking for the first rocket in Mars in 2002, he quickly discovered the astronomical cost of purchasing a single rocket, which is $65 million at that time. Although he had amassed $180 million in total net worth by selling companies like PayPal, the cost was far from sustainable. So he started questioning the assumptions behind the rocket production, and in an interview he says, quote, "I tend to approach things from a physics framework. Physics teaches you to reason from first principles rather than by analogy. So I said, okay, let's look at the first principles. What is a rocket made of? Aerospace grade aluminium alloys plus some titanium, copper and carbon fiber. Then I asked, what is the value of those materials on the commodity market? It turned out that the material cost of a rocket was around 2% of the typical price. So a mere fraction of what it could have been. So by simply calculating down each component down to the very basics, Musk was able to figure out the stark fact of creating own rockets instead of purchasing them. It was so much more convenient and much more cost effective. Building them in-house would make the venture possible. Thus SpaceX is now the leading force behind reusable rocket technology and exploration of space travel while profiting. So you can question the first principle thinking and use every assumption that you might have, or let's take it again. You can use first principle thinking for overcoming your own obstacles too, by questioning the assumptions and be open to new solutions. However, once you're familiar with the first principles, you have to build up the reasoning to the surface again. Besides logic, there is one highly effective way to do this, and that is examples. The ancient texts and religions use tons of examples for a very good reason, because it illustrates how certain ideas manifest in everyday life. An example is this YouTube video you're currently watching, because if you notice, I started by introducing the first principles with definition and how it differed from dogma, and then I added the story of Elon Musk and SpaceX to illustrate the powerful application of the first principles. Another example is a curious 4-year-old who wants to discover whatever he or she can find by asking why all the time. Examples make previous ambiguous ideas very clear. They give you a sense of understanding and an increase in knowledge. It also made things very simple, but it is by knowing the basic principles that you can easily associate examples by noticing the patterns. You have to go down to first principle first, to then use logic and examples. So whenever you want to be simple, use a lot of examples. Ask the other what he or she currently knows and walk through how it relates to what you try to explain. Take him or her by the hand and show the way. But explaining is a skill too. Ultimately, you have to explain a lot to become a better explainer, like common sense, whether via text or speech. Therefore, always seek opportunities to share what you learn and notice the confusion, clarity with your intended recipients. The less they understand you, the more they can practice. And this is one of the reasons why I'm so passionate with creative production, because it forces me to clarify my own thinking and practice my explaining. The more appreciation I get from you, the better I am at explaining, apparently. I also regularly attend conversations to further develop my perspectives and listen to what others have to say. And as a side note, Twitter spaces, like for instance the Stoic space, which I'm highly involved in, are amazing ways to simply share what you learn. It's sort of like public speaking, but from a more remote perspective. So you get the added benefit too to practicing in public, literally. So I will conclude with some action steps that you can use today in order to explain simply and measure your knowledge and ultimately get better at it. And it's the following. Ask why until you cannot anymore, at least 5 times. Then use logic. And if A, B are true, C is true, for example, of logic. And then use a lot of examples to anchor it to reality. And most importantly, practice explaining to people in person via calls or spaces and writing. By doing all of that, you're sharing your knowledge in simple ways, and both you and society will benefit.
Thanks for watching. If you like this video, feel free to give it a thumbs up and click subscribe. Also, don't forget to subscribe to my newsletter, where I dive deeper on one of the articles I publish every day for that particular week, plus some other good stuff too. See you!